Hello everyone and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. It seems that there is a stereotype, a myth, a legend, which says that British people always stop at 5 p.m. and drink tea. I can assure you that that really isn't true. At 5 p.m., most people are trying to get out of the office or are stuck in traffic jams to get across the city or are heading for the train station to try to get back to where they live. For example, if you travel from a village to a city, the last thing on English people's minds at 5 p.m. is tea. But yet this question seems to be one that I'm asked again and again about British people drinking tea at 5 p.m. I think this stereotype or legend came from one of the Alice in Wonderland books. But I can assure you that I've never known any British man or woman to be drinking tea at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., we're on trains, buses, trying to get home from work or packing up from the office, trying to rush out the door, etc. So there is no tea. Coffee, on the other hand, may well be a possibility. People stopping on the way home to grab a cup of coffee from the coffee stand, maybe to fill up their flask of coffee before they leave the office. Coffee is kind of a big deal. It wasn't always like that. When I was a little boy, around the towns and villages, there were still tea rooms. Tea rooms were like little cafes, but they didn't have coffee. So you couldn't call them a cafe because, of course, the word cafe means coffee, doesn't it? Or cafeteria, where you can get coffee. So we didn't have those. It was tea rooms. I also remember my grandparents. They were very, very against coffee. Coffee in the 19th century and up until the 1960s in the UK was seen as a drug. It affected people's behaviour, and as a result, many people really didn't like it. My grandparents were members of the Anti-Coffee League, and they used to march in parades in towns and cities to protest the selling of coffee. They even went to cafeterias and smashed them and destroyed them, and sometimes removed the coffee peacefully, although usually they were a little bit more violent than that, and took the coffee away or destroyed the premises. It was quite something, and also quite hard to believe. Now, of course, I'm not saying that my grandparents were a violent people, not at all, but they did go on these parades where sometimes violence did take place with destroying other people's property who were accused of harbouring or selling coffee. It's hard to believe that, but there are still people around who really refuse to drink coffee for moral reasons. For example, in the UK, there's many Protestant churches which still don't allow their members to drink coffee because they still believe, and it's from the time that their churches were set up, that coffee is a very bad influence for society. For example, Mormons don't allow any caffeinated drinks. Seventh-day Adventists are not very keen on caffeinated drinks and have a particular problem with coffee. There's a few others as well around here which don't appreciate coffee, although that is something from our history, and these institutions are slowly beginning to change because they know they're not getting any new members. But getting back to the subject of tea and coffee, I want to tell you how to make the perfect cup of tea. It's very simple. You get your teapot, and the secret is to heat the teapot before you put the tea in it. Okay, so imagine your teapot, okay? You fill it up with hot water, boiling water. Of course, you've washed it first, okay? And then you fill it up with boiling hot water and you let it stand for around 2 minutes. And while you're doing that, you can go and get the coffee from the cupboard, get the spoon ready and the milk and the sugar if you take it. Okay? So after 2 minutes, you empty it out once again. And then you add the tea, and then you add the hot water. Then you stir it, and then you leave it. So you put the lid on it, and you just leave it for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay? And leaving it for 2 or 3 minutes gives it time to mix and infuse together. Well, let me just tell you that again. So to make the perfect cup of tea, first of all, you heat the teapot by filling it with boiling water, and then you pour the water out after 2 minutes. You add the tea, and you fill it up again with boiling water. You give it a quick stir, and you leave the mixed combination of tea and water for a few minutes. Okay. When you've done that, you pour out just a little bit from the teapot, because you'll see that it's the first few drops of it are white, and you need, of course, to pour into the cups the brown tea. So when you serve it, obviously you're tipping the pot up. It's going to be brown tea, not that white water which usually comes out for the first few seconds, even though you've mixed it up. And then you add your milk and your sugar, and that's how easy it is. So it's not difficult to make a good pot of tea. What's better? Loose tea. Loose tea is the tea that you buy as a powder. You can put it into the teapot. It's like little seeds. Or if you prefer, you can buy those in a tea bag, which is less messy. If you are using loose seeds, then of course you have to use a tea strainer, which is like a little sieve, so that when you pour the tea into the cup, the seeds are caught by the tea strainer on the top. In the old days, when we made a cup of tea, it was quite common for the older person of the house to use the tea leaves to tell your fortune. My grandmother, for example, after making a cup of tea, would take the cup, and I remember she would turn upside down the empty cup on the saucer. She would turn it around 3 times, and the tea leaves would be in the bottom, because we didn't have tea strainers in those days. And she would try to tell the fortune, like a fortune teller. Oh, this person's going to do this person will do that. It was just like a little game, I think, for them, to tell the fortune after the tea. But if you use a tea strainer, all of the tea leaves or the tea seeds are going to be caught on the top. So there's nothing to tell the fortune with. So that's a little introduction to how to make the perfect cup of tea. But tea has kind of gone from here now. We're very American now with our coffee shops, like Starbucks, for example. And there's no real character to those cups of coffee. It's nice service, and yeah, it's great, to be friendly and sit and drink a cup of coffee, but there's no real culture to it, which is a great pity. And that's it for me for today. So enjoy your tea if you try to make it, and let's talk soon. Bye-bye.